Welcome back. This is episode 6 of a 7-part series examining Ontario's proposed modernization of the Private Security and Investigative Services Act, or PSISA. So far in this series, we've covered the reform process, scope and oversight, complaints reform, enforcement powers, licensing, training, and professional standards. In this episode, we're going to focus on what happens after a decision is made: accountability, appeals, and due process. Because accountability without fairness is not regulation, it's just punishment. So, what is the ministry proposing? In its discussion paper, the ministry is emphasizing the need for stronger accountability mechanisms, clear enforcement pathways, administrative penalties, defined review and appeal process, and increased regulatory oversight. Their stated goals are improving public confidence, ensuring consistent enforcement, strengthening compliance, and creating a more modern regulatory framework. On paper, these positions are reasonable and, quite honestly, welcome. No one is arguing about accountability, but intent alone does not determine outcome. Design does. The discussion paper also references administrative penalties and clear enforcement pathways, including fines, license conditions, suspensions, and other regulatory tools intended to ensure compliance. These tools can be effective when applied proportionally and transparently, but without clear thresholds, graduated response, and meaningful review, they risk becoming blunt instruments rather than corrective ones. How accountability systems are structured will decide whether they improve performance or suppress it, and that distinction will matter. No credible profession operates without accountability. Security professionals exercise authority, interact with the public, and make decisions that carry consequences. So that authority must be reviewable. But accountability systems must do more than identify wrongdoing. They must clearly distinguish between misconduct, good faith actions, policy disagreements, or dissatisfaction with outcomes. If accountability frameworks fail to make these distinctions, they don't improve safety. They change the behavior, and not in a good way. Frontline professionals will learn quickly. When systems are perceived to be strictly punitive, unclear, or inconsistent, the lesson becomes obvious. Doing nothing carries less risk than doing your job. And we discussed this earlier in the series, particularly in episode 3, that the mindset doesn't protect the public. It leads to hesitation, disengagement, and avoidance of duty. And ultimately, it undermines safety rather than strengthening it. The risk isn't theoretical, it's cultural. When accountability systems push professionals towards silence instead of responsible action, everybody loses. Accountability systems are only as fair as the people administering them. Those reviewing the complaints must understand time-compressed decision-making, incomplete information, stress, risk, and competing priorities, and the difference between ideal outcomes and realistic options. Oversight without frontline context risks judging decisions with hindsight rather than in the moment they were made. That does not produce fairness. It produces defensive practice. That's why frontline voices must be formally represented in review and oversight processes, not as a courtesy, but as a safeguard or guardrail. Due process is sometimes misunderstood as protection for wrongdoing. It isn't. Due process exists to ensure allegations are properly assessed, evidence is evaluated objectively rather than subjectively, that the context is considered, and that decisions are proportional and defensible. Without due process, accountability becomes arbitrary, and an arbitrary system loses legitimacy, both inside the profession and in the minds of the general public. Appeals are safeguards, not loopholes. A credible accountability framework includes the right to appeal. Appeals, like I said, they're not loopholes, they're safeguards. They allow errors to be corrected, they allow context to be re-examined, they allow precedents to be clarified, and they allow confidence to be maintained in the system as a whole. But safeguards only work if the process is balanced. That means the review and appeal system must include an independent advocate for the guard, not to excuse misconduct, but to ensure that the guard's actions are accurately represented, the context is properly explained, evidence is tested fairly, and decisions are proportional. Police officers have associations, union workers have representation, frontline security should have the same procedural protection. Without an advocate in the process, appeals risk becoming administrative formalities rather than genuine reviews. And that's not due process, that's just optics. The reality is security professionals already operate in a high pressure environment, often without the institutional protections available to other responders. When accountability systems are unclear, inconsistent, or overly punitive, the burden falls squarely on the front line. And that, as we mentioned earlier, has a predictable response of hesitation, reduced intervention, lower morale, and increased risk to the public. Public safety does not benefit from silence or avoidance. The accountability should improve performance, not suppress it. It should not suppress initiative, discourage professionalism, or drive capable people out of the field. A modern PSISA must encourage responsible action. Accountability, appeals, and due process are not obstacles to reform. They're essential to it, and Security Responder welcomes this review. A regulatory framework that is firm, fair, and grounded in frontline reality protects everybody. In the final episode of this series, we'll be addressing one of the more complex and highest risk areas of all: use of force, authority, and public trust, and why clarity here matters. Thank you very much for watching this video. Uh, as I've said before, the comment period for this ends on January 21st, 2026. It is really essential that the frontline voices are heard in this matter, so we encourage everybody to submit their comments to the ministry, or if you'd like, you can send them to us at Security Responder, and we will include your comments along with our submission. Thank you, everybody, and please be safe out there.